a group of heroes are summoned from another world, and they are greeted by a princess. They have their powers appraised, and they are all gifted with unique skills, like the holy sword technique, and the ability to use all kinds of magic. We then meet Mukata, and when he gets appraised, he has a strange online grocery skill. Mukata is shocked hearing this, thinking his skill is useless, and wonders if he has anything else, but gets told that that is his only unique skill. He becomes devastated, and wonders why all the others got such overpowered skills. Despite this, he gets told that he will still need to have an audience with the king. The heroes have an audience with the king, and he explains that their kingdom has been getting attacked by the demon king. He asks for their help, and the three heroes quickly offer themselves to help. Mukata, on the other hand, decides he isn't cut out for being a hero, thinking he would only get in the way, and says he just wants to have a simple life. He ends up getting out, and they even send him off with 20 gold coins. In the town, he starts attracting people's attention with his strange attire, so he quickly buys a change of clothes. He goes around, trying to learn about this world, and ends up getting a room at the inn. He is relieved he decided not to be a hero, finding the king suspicious with how luxurious they seemed, and decides he should leave the kingdom as soon as he can. Mukata checks out his stats, and sees he has an item storage skill, and an appraisal skill. He tries calling out for his online grocery skill, but nothing happens. He wonders how his skill works, and he ends up tapping on it, which brings up a page for his online shop. Mukata tries using it, ordering some water and some food. He tries to check out, but it asks for money, and he finds he can deposit his coins into the screen. After confirming his order, a package instantly appears, containing his items, and Mukata is happy that his skill is actually useful. He ends up learning that a gold coin is worth about $100, and the 20 gold he was given would be enough for a family to live for 3 months. The next day, Mukata finds a ride to get out of the kingdom. Along the way, he meets a merchant, and after talking with him, he finds out his item storage skill is actually super rare, with only 1 in 1,000 people having access to the skill. Hearing this, Mukata goes on to ask about the appraisal skill, and the man reveals that that is even rarer, because only heroes summoned from another world can possess the skill. Mukata gets nervous hearing this, and tries not to be suspicious. The man asks him where he is headed, and Mukata tells him he is trying to get to the next kingdom. The man tells him getting out is a smart decision, because the kingdom is headed for destruction, and there are rumors that the borders are about to close. Mukata is shocked to hear this, and in the end, their carriage ends up getting suspended. At the local tavern, Mukata learns that the carriage services were stopped so people can't run away to the neighboring countries. Because if people run away, the kingdom's army would decrease in size. So the men suggest that they should get out while they still can. Mukata wonders how to get out, worrying about the monsters he might encounter. He ends up heading to the Adventurers Guild, and puts in a request for an escort to get out of the kingdom. The clerk tells him that since he is on foot, it would take a number of days, so the cost would be 8 gold. Mukata is alarmed at the price, but seeing he has no other options, he agrees to the price. The clerk calls over an adventurer, and we meet Werner, a C-ranked adventurer. They negotiate the mission, and Mukata offers to provide them with food during their journey, and they come to an agreement. They prepare to set off the next day, and Werner introduces the rest of his party. There's Vincent the swordsman, Rita the scout, Ramon the mage, and Fanka the healer. They head on their way, and soon stop for a break. Mukata goes to prepare some food, pulling a stove out of his storage. Vincent is surprised to see the storage skill, and Rita is impressed at his magic stove. We see in a flashback, at a store, the shopkeeper tries to sell him a magic stove for 50 gold, but instead, he was able to find a cheap portable stove from his online shop. He ends up making some soup and sandwiches, and when the party tries it, they are amazed. Ramon finds the soup to be delicious, but it was actually just some instant soup. They find the bread is super soft, calling it the best bread they have ever tasted, and are glad they took this mission. The group continues on their way, but get attacked by some monsters. Werner and Vincent are able to swiftly take them out, but Mukata is startled at the scene. As they get healed up, Rita reports that there is a red boar ahead. They discuss how to deal with it, but it suddenly appears, and Mukata is shocked at its size. Werner tells him to get cover, and they proceed to battle against the boar. The boar is defeated, and Mokata is impressed at their strength. They end up skinning the boar for its skin and horns, but there is too much meat for them to carry, so Mokata suggests putting the meat in his storage. They decide to stop for dinner, and the group is looking forward to eating his food. They crowd around him to watch, but Mokata gets worried, saying he gets embarrassed, but in reality, he doesn't want to reveal his special skill. He gets to cooking, combining bacon, cabbage, potatoes, and even adding sausages to create a delicious stew. He hands out the bowls to everyone, and as they eat, Mokata wonders if it's not to their taste, but they are soon stuffing themselves, and they all ask for seconds. Mokata is surprised they like it that much, and Ramon reveals that they normally eat jerky and hard breads when they are traveling. Rita even feels her body in better shape thanks to the meal. Mokata finds this a bit strange, and decides to use his appraisal skill. He is shocked to see Rita has boosted stats, and when he appraises the food, he sees that it grants a buff. Mokata starts to get worried, thinking if someone were to find out, he could be in danger, so he is determined to keep it a secret. But there is a beast that watches them from the bushes. The party continues on their journey. A few days away from the next kingdom, they set up camp in a forest, and Mokata decides to cook some of the boar meat for their dinner. He starts preparing the meat, slicing it up into pieces, and he uses a special sauce from his shop to flavor it. As he starts cooking it, the others are amazed at the smell, and it even attracts the attention of the beast. When Mokata is finished, the others stare in awe. As they try it, they are immediately blown away, having never tasted something like this before. They all praise Mokata, but he just thanks his secret sauce. As Mokata discusses his cooking method, their faces suddenly turn to fear, and the beast has emerged from behind him. They are shocked to see a Fenrir, and it speaks to them, demanding to have some of the meat. Mokata quickly gives it a plate, and it eats it with a single bite. It demands for more, and Mokata asks it to wait while he makes more. The beast agrees, and Mokata quickly prepares more meat. He has a huge plate, but the beast devours it and demands more. Mokata keeps cooking, while the beast keeps eating and demanding for more. After cooking again and again, the beast is eventually satisfied. The beast is impressed Mokata managed to satisfy him and decides to form a familiar contract with him. Mokata thinks it's a bad idea and tries to refuse, but the beast gives him an intense stare, and he just can't refuse. His friends encourage him, and he reluctantly agrees. The beast's head starts to glow, and the two form the contract. With this, the beast tells Mokata that he is now responsible for taking care of him, expecting 3 meals a day, and Mokata is left shocked at what he has gotten himself into. As part of the contract, the beast tells him to give him a name. Mokata tries to think, coming up with common dog names, but the beast is not impressed. Seeing it is a Fenrir, Mokata suggests Fel, and the beast agrees. As the party continues on, the people avoid them, and Werner worries that they won't be able to get past the border. Rita explains that there is a legend where a Fenrir destroyed a whole country, and Franca says it definitely happened. Mokata starts to worry, but Fel tells him he will destroy anyone that messes with them, but this just makes them more nervous. They have a break for lunch, and as Mokata goes to prepare the food, he realizes he is out of meat. When Fel demands to have meat, Mokata says he eats too much and tells him to catch his own food. Fel agrees with this and heads into the forest, leaving the rest of the party amazed that he can already command the beast. Fel soon returns, bringing back a rock bird, and Werner is surprised, saying that it is a B-ranked monster that they normally would struggle to defeat. Its beak and claws are valuable, and Fel lets them have the materials, as long as he gets the meat. Mokata starts preparing their lunch, treating it like chicken. He uses teriyaki sauce for flavor. He serves the party, and Fel wonders about his share. Mokata tells him since he eats so much, he will need to wait until the end, and he patiently waits his turn. Mokata makes a huge portion for Fel, and he happily eats it all. After that, the party makes it to the border of the kingdom of Venan. The guards are on high alert, and Werner says they are preparing for Fel. He tells them to wait, while he heads down to explain the situation. Mokata wonders if it's going to be okay, and they soon end up completely surrounded. The commander worries about letting in a beast that can destroy a country, but Mokata tells Fel not to cause any trouble, and Fel says he will only destroy those that harm them. The soldiers are amazed it can talk, and the commander ends up agreeing to let them in. As they enter, the party show their guild cards, but Mokata doesn't have one, so he is forced to pay to get in. They finally get in, and Werner warns Mokata that people will be after him when they hear he has a legendary familiar. Mokata despairs, thinking he had gotten away from the politics, but says he won't be staying for too long, planning to continue traveling and making money using his unique shop skill. Werner suggests it would be helpful to join a guild, and Mokata considers the Merchant Guild. However, Vincent points out that the Adventurers Guild would be able to help with skinning and buying the materials from the beasts that Fel hunts, so Mokata struggles to decide. But Franca says that although it's not common, it's possible to just register for both guilds. The party heads into the town, and Mokata is hit with another fee. There is a servant that instantly greets him, inviting him to meet the Count as a legendary beast tamer. Mokata doesn't want to go, and tries to turn him down, but the man is insistent that he comes with him. However, when Fel approaches, he threatens the man, who runs off terrified. Werner worries about making an enemy, but Fel says he can handle anything they throw at them. Vincent suggests they would need a dragon to go up against Fel. Mokata is shocked to learn there are dragons, and Fel agrees that a dragon would be the only thing that could match him, saying he once fought against one 400 years ago. Werner gets Mokata to sign off on their job, and Mokata is surprised he can understand the language, thinking it must be a skill that heroes are summoned with. The group thanks him for all the delicious food, and the party goes their separate ways. Mokata heads over to the Merchant Guild, and the people around try to avoid him. As he enters, everyone turns their attention to him, nervous at the sight of Fel. Mokata requests to join the guild, and the clerk explains that there are 5 levels of merchants, which determines the level of fees and taxes. She offers him the iron rank, and hands him his guild card. Later, Mokata finds that beasts aren't allowed to stay at the inn, but Fel is more interested in what's for dinner. Mokata starts preparing the meat, but suddenly gets a craving for rice, so he picks up another stove from his shop. As he cooks, Fel watches eagerly. He finishes it off with a sauce, and Fel devours it, finding it to be delicious. Mokata gives him another steak, but Fel notices a change in the flavor. Mokata reveals he has different sauces, and Fel is amazed that the same meat can taste completely different. But in the end, Fel really likes the garlic flavor. Mokata cooks for himself, making a delicious beef bowl, and he blows himself away. As Mokata goes to rest for the night, he quickly prepares the goods he plans on selling. The next day, Mokata heads back to the Merchant Guild, wanting to sell some of his goods. When the clerk checks out what he has, she is shocked and runs off. Mokata wonders if there is a problem, but she ends up inviting him inside. He meets with the guild master, who examines his goods. The guild master tells him that the quality of his salt and pepper is exceptional, even fit for a king. He wonders how Mokata came across such product, and it turns out he just bought it from his shop. But Mokata says he came across it during his travels, and the guild master respects his privacy. The guild master offers to buy everything for 14 gold, shocking Mokata because it only cost him 5 copper each. As he considers the exchange rate, the guild master thinks he is reluctant and ends up offering even more money, upping his offer all the way to 17 gold, and Mokata accepts the deal. He can't believe how easy it is to make money, and now he won't need to worry about making money for a while. He heads over to the Adventurers Guild next, and the atmosphere is completely different. He tells the clerk he wants to join, but she is disinterested, and just hands him a form. After he fills it out, she throws him his card, saying he starts at G rank, and he wonders if he could have an explanation about the guild. The girl sighs, and explains that adventurers are ranked from G to S rank. He is able to take missions up to 1 level higher than his rank, and the guild takes no responsibility for any injuries or death. Mokata checks out the job board, and finds an easy herb gathering mission to start with. The next day, Mokata starts getting ready, preparing to set off on his mission, but Fel glares at him, demanding that it's time for breakfast. The two make it to the fields, but Fel says he is still hungry. There wasn't enough ingredients, so Mokata tells him he should go hunting again. Fel agrees, but worries about Mokata's safety if he is not around, saying he can feel that there are monsters around. Fel tells him not to worry, casting a protective barrier on him. He dashes off, telling Mukata to have lunch prepared for him. Mukata starts his quest, searching for his herbs, but it's an easy task for him because he can use his appraisal skill on the field to easily find the right herbs. He is able to easily complete the mission, and even wonders if he will get a bigger reward for collecting more than the requested amount. With his mission complete, he decides to start making lunch. Since he is out of meat, he decides to make a cheap meal he can buy from his shop, which turns out to be spaghetti. As he is preparing the meal, Fel returns with a rock bird, saying he enjoyed the teriyaki from the other day. He says he hunted other monsters as well, but couldn't bring them all at once, but Mukata tells him they can pick it up later. Mukata finishes off preparing the spaghetti, but remembers the final ingredient, picking up some Parmesan cheese. Fel finds the spaghetti to be strange, but Mukata explains it is food from his own world. When Fel tries it, he is pleasantly surprised, enjoying it even though there isn't as much meat. Mukata tells him to try out the cheese powder, and Fel is amazed at the richer flavor. Fel ends up making a mess, getting the sauce all over himself, as Mukata laughs at the sight. Mukata is suddenly shocked when he sees the mountain of monsters that Fel hunted. There are all kinds of monsters, and Mukata starts stuffing them into his storage. He wonders if everything is edible when he recognizes an orc, but Fel tells him that orcs are considered delicacies, essentially just treating them as walking pigs. With all the monsters stored up, it's time to head back to the town. Mukata heads to the Adventurers Guild and hands in the herbs. The girl is surprised he has so many, saying he must have gotten lucky, and pays him 9 silver for the herbs. Mukata then asks about selling monsters, surprising the girl, but he points over to Fel, and the girl is stunned to see him. She quickly regains her composure and points him over to the guild butcher. Mukata pulls out an orc, and the man worries about space, so they head out to the back. The butcher tells Mukata he has heard about him from the rumors around town. Mukata pulls out the mountain of monsters, shocking the man with the amount, and that there are also some A-ranked monsters. Mukata asks him to skin all the monsters, saying he will sell all the materials except for the meat. With so many monsters, the butcher tells him to come back the next day. Mukata asks him to skin one of the monsters so they can have something for dinner, so the man prepares one of the orcs for him. Mukata starts preparing dinner, and we learn his storage skill can keep his food from spoiling. He cuts up the orc meat, coating it with flour, and fries it up. He finishes it off with some leftover sauce from that lunch. Fel devours the food, saying that orc meat is much more tender than regular boar meat. Mukata is turned off by the image of the orc, but when he tastes it, he is pleasantly surprised, learning not to judge things before trying them out. The next morning, Mukata heads back to the butcher's. There is a mountain of meat, and the man hands him his gold for all the materials. He is paid 202 gold, and Mukata is shocked at the amount of money. The man tells him he can't be so clueless, teaching him about the value of certain materials, like orc testicles, which are good for strength, and boar tusks that can be used for crafting. The man also hands him some demonic stones that contain magic powers and are dropped from the A-ranked monsters. The man tells him that people around town have been talking about him, debating about whether Fel is really a Fenrir or just a great wolf. As Mukata walks through town, he can hear the people debating. He thinks it's time that they left, and tells Fel they shouldn't stay in the same place for too long. Fel says he doesn't mind, but says he is hungry again after seeing the mountain of meat. The two make their way out of the town, and find a place to set up camp. As Mukata goes to prepare dinner, he decides to treat Fel to a feast since he made him so much money. He pulls up his shop, showing Fel all the meats from his world, and he suddenly thinks it's raining, but it's really just Fel drooling over seeing the options. Mukata orders a bunch of food, and creates a platter of mixed meat from his world. Fel is amazed by the different textures and flavors, having never eaten such foods before. Mukata follows up with the main dish, cooking up some Japanese black wagyu, but Fel is disappointed by its small size. However, when he tastes it, he is instantly blown away, and Mukata tells him it's from a cow that was specially raised. After their feast, Fel is energized, saying he could even beat up a dragon. Mukata gets worried hearing this and uses his appraisal skill on him. He is shocked to see that Fel has a massive boost to all of his stats. With all his energy, Fel decides to go hunting, but Mukata worries about being left alone. Fel casts his barrier on him, and telling him it would be enough to even stop a dragon's breath. Fel runs off, and Mukata is left behind. And trusting in Fel's barrier, he just prepares his bed and goes to sleep. Fel goes on a rampage through the forest, taking out a rock bird with a single slash, using lightning magic to destroy a giant deer. There's a chimera beast that appears, but Fel unleashes a devastating lightning attack against it, causing a huge explosion. In the morning, Mukata can't believe himself when he finds 3 mountains of monsters all around him. Fel agrees that he might have gone a little overboard, but he boasts about taking the chimera with a single attack when he normally would have had trouble against it. Seeing the effects of the black wagyu, Mukata has no choice but to ban it from his menu. As they have a break for lunch, Mukata wonders if Fel uses magic when hunting monsters. Fel reveals he is particularly good with wind magic, having been blessed by the wind goddess. Mukata is amazed to see magic for the first time and wonders if it's possible for him to use magic as well. Fel tells him it should be possible if he has magic power, so he checks his stats and finds that he should be able to use magic. He asks Fel for instruction, but Fel just tells him that he needs to just think about it. Mukata thinks this means imagining it and tries using a fireball, but nothing happens and he becomes embarrassed. Fel shows him how mana flows within his body, and after a while, he manages to shoot a fireball, although it's super weak. Fel comments on his training method, suggesting he should get experience from fighting monsters. Mukata is worried about getting hurt, but Fel gets annoyed and carries him off. They end up finding some goblins, but there is a whole village of them. Mukata worries there are too many, but seeing that he is a coward, Fel howls and draws the attention of all the goblins. They start getting chased, and Fel tells him he now has no choice but to fight. He leaves to find the goblin boss, and Mukata is left alone. Mukata attacks using his fireball, but as he tries to run, he trips over. As a goblin jumps at him, he is actually protected by Fel's barrier. He keeps throwing his fireballs, and eventually throws one that is quite powerful. He collapses after using all his mana, but Fel reappears to finish things up. When he wakes up, he has trauma from the experience, but Fel says he should thank him for helping him use magic, and even sense that he has leveled up. When Mukata checks, he finds he has even gained the fire magic skill. As a congratulations, Fel has brought the Goblin King. Although it's not edible, he brought it back because it contains a magic stone. Seeing as magic stones can be traded for a lot of money, Fel thinks he should be rewarded with another feast, especially wanting the wagyu steak again, but Mukata refuses the request. Mukata is dizzy from the lack of mana, so he decides to just buy some food instead of cooking. It's an assortment of sweet breads, but Fel wants to have meat instead. Mukata insists that he is too exhausted, so Fel settles for the bread. Despite not being meat, he finds it to be good, and even asks for more. Mukata tells him if he eats too many sweets, he could get cavities or diabetes. But Fel tells him that is impossible, since he is blessed by the wind goddess. He is immune to any sickness and other ailments. Fel gloats about being blessed, and Mukata thinks it's not fair since he is already so strong. Mukata begs to be blessed as well, and we see that the goddess seems to be watching. There is a commotion at the next town when Mukata approaches with Fel. He quickly shows off his guild card, saying that Fel is his great wolf familiar. When Fel tries to correct them, Mukata goes along with calling him a great wolf so they attract less attention. Fel suddenly talks telepathically to him, annoyed at being called a great wolf. The guard warns him that he will be held responsible for problems that Fel causes. When they get inside the town, Mukata suggests they need to find a map, so they can know where they are going. Mukata visits a tavern. There are a bunch of rowdy adventurers, and Mukata approaches a group to ask questions. He orders a round of drinks for the table, and they happily talk to him. They tell him about the different kingdoms, and when he mentions that he doesn't have a map, the men reveal that they have a map that was passed down by an older adventurer. They show it to him, and say that since they have already memorized it, they offer to sell it to him for 1 gold. Mukata agrees to buying it, and they part ways. After the men have left, the other adventurers laugh at him, revealing that he got scammed. because the map is just a common item that can be bought for 1 silver at the guild. Fel comforts him, saying they will make more money, and Mukata decides to head east, to the country next to the sea, but Fel is more interested in the seafood they'll get to eat. Meanwhile, the wind goddess Nenri watches over Fel, and she is curious about Mukata, who managed to form a contract with him. Seeing all the sweets they are eating, she wishes to have a taste of them for herself, but she knows she can't just intervene in the world. However, the thought of it is just too much, and it drives her mad. The pair go flying through the forest until Fel comes to a stop. Fel finds it strange he is covered in injuries, but Mukata tells him it's because he dashed so quickly through the forest. He wonders if they've arrived at the sea, but Fel tells him he stopped at a lake because he had a craving for fish. Mukata wonders how they can fish without a rod, but Fel uses his lightning magic on the lake, and all the fish float to the surface. Mukata starts collecting the fish, finding some trout, and he wonders if it is the same as fish from Earth. Fel tells him to collect the pink fish, saying that it makes his tongue tingle. Mukata thinks the color is suspicious, and when he appraises it, it turns out to be a poisonous fish. He throws it back, and refuses to cook it, not wanting to mix poison with his cooking, so Fel has no choice but to agree. He starts a fire, and as he buys some other ingredients, Fel keeps pestering him to buy meat, but Mukata keeps turning him down. Mukata starts preparing the fish, thanking a video series he watched about cooking fish. He guts the fish, and cleans it thoroughly. After skewering them, and adding salt, he puts them on the fire to grill. He ends up cooking up a number of fish dishes, and when they taste the food, they are both blown away. Fel devours the food, and Mukata even cracks open a beer to go with the fish. They end up completely stuffed. Mukata becomes startled when he suddenly runs into a blue slime. Fel tells him not to be scared, since it's very weak. Mukata pokes it, feeling that it is kind of like jelly, and the slime high-fives him. He checks out its stats, and it's super weak, having only been born 3 days ago. It bobs up and down, and Mukata wonders if it's hungry, but he is all out of food. The slime ends up eating a bottle, and Fel says that slimes can even eat rocks. It starts eating other trash, but when it grabs the frying pan, Mukata quickly stops it. But in the end, Mukata is happy that it could eat all his trash, and the slime seems happy to be praised. He starts petting it, and Fel tells him it has become his familiar. Mukata is confused because he didn't make a contract. Fel says that just accepting its feelings was enough, and when he checks his status, it has become his familiar. Fel tells him to name it, and Mukata ends up calling it Sui. A few days later, Mukata starts trying to learn earth magic, but he struggles to shoot even a pebble. Fel suggests that he needs some more hands-on experience, but Mukata is still traumatized from being chased by the goblins, and absolutely refuses. Mukata takes a break, and Sui tries to eat his bottle. Mukata notices that he is getting bigger, and is already level 8. He wonders if eating items from the other world will provide benefits, just like the food does. Fel starts getting hungry again, and Mukata makes an orc meat bowl for him, and even makes a bowl for Sui. Mukata enjoys a bowl for himself, but Fel quickly demands for seconds, and even Sui asks for more. After their dinner, Sui helps to clean the dishes, dissolving only the food scraps, and Mukata is thankful for his help. He decides to have dessert, to go with Sui's first meal, and he serves them some dorayaki, which is a pastry with a sweet red bean filling. Sui seems to really enjoy it, and Mukata is glad. In the morning, Fel gets a message from the goddess, and when Mukata wakes up, he shares the message that he received. He tells him that the wind goddess Nenri is willing to bless him, but there are a few conditions. He tells him that he would need to pray, and offer sweets from the other world once a week. Fel goes on to tell him that it would be impossible to give him a full blessing, so he would only get a minor blessing, but it would still be enough to make him immune to all status ailments, and even boost his magic. Mukata thinks it's a great deal, and instantly decides to accept it. He wonders how he can pray and make his offerings, but Fel tells him he can use anything as an altar, even a rock on the ground, as long as his feelings are conveyed. For the first offering, Fel tells him that she wants the dorayaki, as well as some cream and melon breads. Mukata can't believe she is demanding specific items, but ends up preparing them and offering them to the goddess. The items vanish, and he receives the blessing. Meanwhile, Nenri gets hold of the sweets, and she can't believe just how soft and sweet it tastes. She quickly devours it and becomes sad when it's finished. She tries some coffee that Mokata sent, and she finds its bitterness pairs perfectly with the sweets. She reaches for the other sweets, but thinks she should savor them, but in the end she can't control herself, and just devours them both. Back with Mokata's training, he is able to shoot a larger stone, with much more speed and force, thanks to his blessing. Sui has also leveled up to level 13, and Mokata wonders if it will be able to evolve eventually. He keeps practicing, but gets tired when he runs out of mana. He has some chocolate to help him recover, and he even gives some to Sui. He waits for Fel, who seemed to have gone to investigate something, but when he returns, he notices that they were eating without him. Mokata shows him the chocolate he ate to recover, and Fel suddenly claims to be tired from running. Mokata doesn't buy it, but Fel tells him he is tired from carrying him every day, so Mokata has to order some more for him. As he eats it, Mokata gets a message from Ninri. She calls it a divine message, but she just wants some chocolate as well. Mokata mentions how it hasn't been a week since his last offering, but Ninri insists on it. Mokata reluctantly sends her the chocolate, and Fel suddenly decides it's time to go. Mokata asks if they're in a rush, and Fel has a suspicious look on his face, and they end up at the entrance to a dungeon. Mokata is confused why they are there, but Fel tells him that they are there to get experience. Just like when he learned fire magic, he had to fight against goblins. Mokata tries to sneak away, but Fel pulls him back. Looking at the dungeon, Mokata is terrified, wanting to leave. Fel tells him he has already explored the dungeon, and there are only weak monsters inside. But Mokata doesn't believe him. Fel insists on this method, because Mokata's own training hasn't produced much results. He tells him not to worry since he will protect him with his barrier, but tells him that one day he may not be there, so he will need to be able to defend himself. Mokata ends up agreeing, but decides that he needs to prepare before they go in. He prepares a feast of all kinds of food from his shop. Fel is curious what he is doing, and Mokata reveals that food from the other world gives temporary buffs, reminding Fel of how he felt stronger after eating the wagyu steak. Since he doesn't know which foods boost which stats, he prepares to eat a bit of everything, and then give the leftovers to him and Sui. He starts eating, having a bit of each of the dishes, and Fel can sense that his stats are increasing. He gives Sui some of the food, and he eats the entire plate. Fel wonders if the trash that Sui eats also gives a buff, but Mokata reveals that the trash actually helps Sui level up. Mokata finishes off with some dessert, and he ends up completely stuffed. When he checks his stats, he can see that all his stats have increased by around 20%, and Sui and Fel's stats have also increased around the same amount. Fel suggests they are ready to go, but Mokata is still a little worried. They start to enter, but Mokata makes sure to remind Fel to cast his barrier. They walk slowly, and Fel starts pushing him along. Fel ends up shoving him, and he comes across a slime. He feels bad about attacking a slime, but Sui spits out acid and takes it out. Fel praises his attack, and thinks that Sui could even be unique. More slimes approach, and Mokata uses his stone bullet spell, and Sui takes out the other one. Fel warns him about horned rabbits coming up next, and they soon charge at him, and he panics and swings his sword wildly. As they head deeper, Mokata wonders why they are getting attacked, because normally monsters are too afraid to even approach Fel, but Fel tells him that dungeons are different and the monsters inside will attack regardless. They come across kobolds on the next level. Mokata uses his stone bullet and manages to take both of the kobolds out. Mokata gets proud of himself, but Fel says he still has more to learn, and Mokata gets hyped up to get even stronger. They head to the final floor of the dungeon, and Fel mentions there should be about 10 kobolds. But Mokata is shocked to see that there are quite a few more. He wants to give up, but Fel drags him back. Fel tells him that together with Sui, he can take them out. Mokata doesn't believe him, but Sui is pumped. Fel ends up kicking him off, and all the kobolds turn toward him. Mokata is terrified, and the kobolds charge at him, but he is protected by Fel's barrier. Sui attacks using his acid, and Mokata starts attacking with his earth magic. He takes some of them out, but more charge at him, and he starts shooting stones from both hands. Together with Sui, they manage to take out most of the kobolds. The remaining kobolds run, but they get blown away as the Kobold King appears. Mokata is terrified, barely dodging its attack. He runs and shoots his stone bullets, but they seem to just bounce off the king. He rapid fires with both hands, but it has little effect on the beast. Fel mentions that his barrier might not be enough to block the attacks, so he encourages Mukata not to get hit. As the Kobold King prepares its attack, Mukata casts an impressive stone blast that lands on the beast's head. Although injured, the beast gets back up. As Mukata tries to attack, he runs out of mana. The beast swings at him, but his barrier activates. Fel reveals that he lied, saying his barrier would never break to such a weak attack. As the beast struggles with the barrier, Sui comes to the rescue, attacking with his acid and taking out the Kobold King. The beast is reduced to a pile of goop, and Sui starts to glow, but Mukata ends up passing out. Fel carries him out of the dungeon, and Sui worries about him. Fel notices that Sui can suddenly speak. Sui can't wait to talk with Mukata, and wonders when he will wake up. Fel says they can talk while they wait, and Sui happily calls him Uncle Fel. Fel is annoyed at being called an uncle, but Sui mentions how he is big and strong, and is always taking care of them, so he sees him as an uncle. Fel is proud for a moment, but snaps out of it, and refuses to be called an uncle. He leaves to get a snack, but quickly returns to remind Sui to stay in his barrier, and Sui insists that he is Uncle Fel. When Mukata wakes up, he panics, but soon realizes that he is outside. Sui comforts him, and starts talking to him, and Mukata is shocked to hear him talking. Sui explains that after they beat the king, he started being able to talk. He calls him master, and Mukata finds him to be even more adorable. He checks on Sui's stats, and sees that he has leveled up, and even gained the acid bullet skill. He checks his own stats, and finds that he gained 4 levels, and now has the earth magic skill. Fel returns, and Mukata wonders where he went. Fel mentions how he was passed out for a while, and he got hungry, so he went to find some food, but says that he prefers his cooking, so he asks for some food as a reward for helping Mukata learn earth magic. Mukata is annoyed that he lied about his barrier breaking, but Fel reasons that it was just to help him. Mukata gives in, and decides to make some food. He prepares some eggs, and some leftover rockbird, combining them together to create a delicious dish. Fel instantly devours it, amazed at the use of eggs, and Sui finds it delicious as well. After their meal, Mukata wonders if Fel has talked with Sui, and Sui mentions how he talked a lot with Uncle Fel when he was asleep. Mukata laughs at Fel being called an uncle, and Fel gets mad, reminding Sui not to call him uncle. Mukata keeps making fun of Fel, saying compared to Sui, who is only 2 weeks old, he is definitely an uncle. Sui insists on calling him uncle, but Fel yells at him, and Sui begins to cry. Mukata calls him mean, and Fel has no choice but to let Sui continue to call him Uncle Fel. As they travel, Fel mentions that they are going to be passing through Orthros and Griffin territory. Humans would normally go around to avoid these areas, but Fel insists on going straight through. Mukata is shocked to learn this, and gets worried about getting attacked. He wonders why they are going straight through, but Fel says they are no threat to him. Mukata tries to get him to turn around, but Fel tells him they are already in the Orthros territory. Mukata hears the beasts in the forest, and they are soon approached by a pack of Orthros, which appear to be twin-headed wolves. Fel uses his intimidation, causing the Orthros to back away, but there is still one that wants to fight. Fel sees that it's younger and more foolish, so he tells Mukata to stand back with Sui. Mukata hides in a bush, and Fel tries to warn the beast, but it lunges at him, and Fel uses a skill, completely destroying the beast with a single slash. The other Orthros become terrified and run away. Mukata wonders about the attack that Fel used, and Fel explains that it's a skill he invented 600 years ago. As he talks about it, Mukata sees how smug he looks, and Sui wonders if he could also learn the skill. Mukata says it's unlikely since he doesn't have claws, but compliments his acid bullet skill. He praises Sui, and Fel is left feeling jealous. As they set up camp, Mukata is still on edge, but Fel tells him not to worry, because the Orthros should have learned their lesson. Fel is more interested in what's for dinner, but Mukata still worries, and wonders if he has set up his barrier correctly. Sui calls out, saying he is hungry, and Mukata rushes to him, saying he will cook something nice for him, and Fel notices just how different Mokata is treating the two of them. As Mokata is about to cook, he asks Fel how long it will take for them to get through the forest. Fel tells him that they are halfway through, and Mokata is shocked that they have another 3 weeks to go. Thinking that they may run out of meat, Mokata decides to cook some black serpent. He has heard that it tastes just like chicken, so he decided to prepare it in the same way. He orders his ingredients and takes the meat off the bones. He finds the meat lean, like chicken breast, so he cuts it up, marinating it in sugar and sake. He makes a chili sauce out of his special ingredients and then fries it up all together to create his dish. Mokata is hesitant to try it, so he imagines it as chicken. As he eats it, he finds it to be delicious, and Fel demands to have some as well, snatching the dish out of his hands. Fel finds it to be amazing and immediately demands for more. As they travel through the forest, Fel suddenly comes to a stop. He sees some glowing mushrooms and says that they have the power to heal the body. They are usually quite rare, so Mokata decides to stock up on some. Sui eats the mushrooms, while Mokata continues to harvest them. Mokata ends up with a bunch, and Sui suddenly starts glowing. Mokata wonders if he is okay, and the glowing stops. Mokata uses his appraisal skill just to be sure, and finds that Sui has gained the skill to create healing potions. Fel suggests that skill is from eating all the mushrooms, remembering a time when he saw a slime turn to metal after eating only metal. Mokata is overjoyed to learn this, and he praises Sui. He asks him to try out his new skill, and Sui gives it a go. He eventually creates the healing potion from his hand, and Mokata quickly grabs a bottle and bottles it up. Mokata appraises the potion, and it's considered high quality. Mokata wonders what this means, and it turns out Sui can create 3 levels of potions that can be used to heal different amounts. Fel says he has been around a long time, but has never seen a slime that can produce healing potions, so he thinks that Sui must be unique. Sui jumps onto him, and he continues to praise him. They continue traveling until they eventually enter the griffin territory. A griffin lands, and Mokata is terrified, but the griffin shows respect and is able to speak. It asks Fel for a favor, saying he wants to fight Fel so he can be accepted as the leader of his group. Fel agrees, but says he won't be going easy. Mokata takes cover, but communicates to Fel not to kill him. Their fight begins as Fel charges at the griffin. Fel lands a kick, and the griffin shoots his feathers down. The area is filled with dust, and the griffin launches an attack. But Fel uses his wind magic, creating an enormous tornado, which cuts up the bird. Mokata tells him he has done enough, and Fel ends his magic. Mokata rushes over, and the griffin is heavily injured. Mokata calls for Sui, and drenches the bird with the healing potion. The griffin is saved, but it feels bad about losing. But Mokata tells him to look closer, and it seems he was able to do some damage to Fel, and Fel reluctantly admits to this. The griffin lets out a cry, and the rest of his flock joins him. He is accepted as the leader, and as thanks, he gives Mokata one of his feathers, saying they won't eat his descendants. The griffins leave, and they set up for another night. Fel demands lots of meat after using his energy in the fight, but Mokata mentions how he gets plenty every day. Mokata decides to cook up the rest of their meat, and he fries up some orc meat. Fel and Sui happily devour the food, but Mokata is hesitant, remembering what the orcs looked like, but in the end, it's just pork, and they all happily eat. After their meal, Fel wonders if he has been making his offerings to Ninri, but Mokata seems to have forgotten. Fel reprimands him, and we see Ninri waiting. Mokata finally prays, and Ninri yells at him for being late. Mokata says he has been busy, but Ninri says she has been watching and knows that he just forgot. She continues to reprimand him, but Mokata begs for forgiveness, offering up a large range of Western desserts. Ninri's mood instantly changes, drooling over the desserts. She is blown away by the cake and demands Mokata to send her the same amount next time. The group finally makes it through the forest, and they approach the kingdom of Leonhardt. He mentions they need to get to the guild because they are out of meat, and Fel immediately worries. He starts searching for the road, and they come across a caravan in the distance. Fel mentions they are being attacked by bandits, and Mokata tells him to save them, offering up a special dinner. Fel dashes off, excited about the offer, and we see that at the caravan, the people are struggling against the bandits. Fel arrives, letting off a deafening roar that causes everyone to freeze. He tells the bandits to give up or else, and they all throw down their weapons. They are all captured, and we meet Lambert, the owner of the caravan, and Lars, the leader of the adventurer group. They thank him for his help, and they are surprised to meet the person that all the rumors have been talking about. Mukata wonders where they are headed, and Lambert says they are headed to the city of Carolina. Mukata reveals they are new to the area, so he asks to tag along with them. Lambert feels safer having him around, and welcomes them to join him. As Mukata joins the escort, he hears the guards debating if Fel is a Fenrir or a great wolf. Mukata is shocked to see that the rumors about him have spread so far, but he learns that the guilds have been sending letters about him, using magical teleportation tools. Everyone seems focused on Fel, but Mukata worries about leaking his identity as a summoned hero with his item storage and shop skills. He realizes that nobles seem to have the most interest in Fel, and he hopes that no one will try anything in this new kingdom. The caravan stops for the night, and Fel reminds Mukata that he promised him a special dinner for saving the caravan. While the guards settle for eating jerky, Mukata finds a private area. Fel demands lots of meat, but Mukata seems bored of his request. However, when Sui says he wants some meat, Mukata happily agrees. He is all out of steaks, so he decides to combine all the meat that he has left. Since he promised a special dinner, Mukata goes all out with his seasoning. He marinates his meat with his sauces, then adds flour and shakes it to create a coating. He fries it all up, and creates a delicious fried chicken dish. Sui finds it amazing there are 2 different flavors, and Fel also seems to enjoy it. As Mukata cooks up the rest of the meat, the smell travels over to the rest of the caravan. They are all drawn by the smell, and they approach to check it out. They wonder what he is eating, and Mukata offers to let them try some. The men instantly find it to be delicious, saying it's the best food they've ever had. Mukata keeps cooking and serving the food, and by the end, Mukata is exhausted. The guards all thank him for the food, but in the end, he didn't get to have any food himself. The guards tell him to rest while they stand watch at night, but the bandits curse at them. However, Mukata warns them not to try anything funny or else Fel will tear them apart, and the bandits are terrified. After a peaceful night, they make it to Carolina. Lambert explains that it's the 5th largest city in the kingdom, and his family has been leather merchants in the city for generations. The bandits are handed over to the city knights, and Lars is headed to the guild to submit his report. Mukata decides to also head to the guild, and promises to visit Lambert's shop. At the guild, Mukata finds that his card has been unregistered. He didn't complete the minimum number of quests in the last month, so they ended up deactivating his card. Mukata thinks about everything he went through over the last month, but the clerk tells him that people usually try to take as many missions so they can quickly get to F rank, because the time limit is extended to 3 months. Mukata decides to re-register, and mentions that he has gained a second familiar. He shows off Sui, but the girl is not impressed. He gets laughed at by some adventurers, but he tries not to let it bother him. Mukata heads over to the guild butcher, but he runs into Lars and his group. Mukata says he is just trying to sell some of the beasts that Fel caught, and Lars asks to have a look, wanting to see what Fel has caught. Mukata thinks it's okay, but when he shows his haul, the group is shocked, having never even seen some of the monsters. The butcher gets excited to work with such high-class materials, claiming to be the best at dissecting monsters. He skins the red serpent, mentioning how the meat is something commoners would never get to taste. Mukata and Fel imagine how it will taste, and Lars suddenly wonders what kind of meat they had for dinner the previous night. Mukata says it was a bit of everything, mentioning rockbird, giant deer, and orc meat. The group immediately apologizes to him, not realizing that they had such a high-quality meal. But Mukata says that it's fine, since he has so much. Lars says he is well known in the city, and tells him to call if there is anything he needs. At night, Mukata rests at an inn. He thinks he should try to reach F rank, since he needs to maintain access to the butcher. He's not sure about becoming an adventurer, and he suddenly hears Ninri's voice, telling him he has more important things to do. She says she has been waiting patiently for him, so Mukata checks his shop for some sweets. He picks out a bunch of jellies and pudding, and offers them to Ninri, thanking her for her blessing. As Ninri tries out the pudding, she is amazed by its wobbly nature. but as she enjoys it, it seems as though she has attracted the attention of the other goddesses. The next day, Mukata checks out the job board at the guild. Each of the jobs gives points based on their difficulty, with herb gathering giving 1 point and goblin hunting giving 3 points. He needs to get to 100 points to move up to the next rank, and Fel thinks they should take the goblin quest to level up faster, but Mukata refuses, because he still has trauma from the last time he fought goblins. Fel wants to get to the ocean as soon as possible, so he can eat all the seafood that he wants. He has been craving seafood ever since the last time they had fish. Fel asks Sui what he thinks, suggesting he could fight against goblins, and Sui gets excited. Mukata tries to convince him to choose the safer option of collecting herbs, but Sui says he can already make his own medicine and would rather just fight. Mukata gives in and picks up the goblin hunting mission. They head into the forest, and their mission is to hunt 3 goblins. They quickly find some goblins, and Sui easily takes them out with his acid bullets. As proof that they killed the goblins, Mukata has to cut off their right ears. Mukata struggles to do this, and Fel thinks it's weird since he should be used to cooking monsters, but Mukata argues that it's not the same. Mukata's rant ends up attracting a whole swarm of goblins. Sui easily takes them out, blasting them with his acid spray. They find the goblin camp, but Mukata says they've already done enough to complete the quest. Sui begs to continue, and Mukata lets his guard down, and Fel drags him along. In the end, they take out all the goblins, and Sui says he had a lot of fun. Fel tells Mukata to collect the ears, but Mukata wants to refuse. Fel drags him along, and after collecting all the ears, Mukata has emotional damage. Mukata gets worried about how they should dispose of all the bodies, not wanting to attract other monsters or even a dungeon to form. Fel suggests they could burn the bodies, but Mukata worries about starting a forest fire. Mukata ends up asking Sui to melt all the bodies with his acid, and Sui starts to shake and grows to an enormous size. It seems Sui has gained a new skill to change his size. Sui starts to shake again and splits up into smaller pieces. There is a whole army of slimes, and they start melting down the pile of goblins. Mukata wonders if Fel has ever seen something like this, but even he is amazed. Sui finishes the job, and Mukata wonders just how much stronger he will become. When Mukata returns to the guild, everyone is shocked at how many goblins they took out. He is called to meet the guild master, and Mukata starts to worry. They are introduced to the guild master Willem, and he confirms that they wiped out the entire goblin settlement. Mukata admits to it, and Willem is impressed by Fel's strength. He reveals the real reason for calling him, mentioning a message he received from the royal palace. It says that they can freely live in the country, however, they wish to rely on him in times of emergency. Mukata celebrates being free from the agendas of the nobles, and Willem says that just having a legendary beast in the country will be enough of a deterrent to the neighboring countries. Hearing that Mukata is looking to level up his guild rank, Willem decides to use his authority as the guild master to raise him to C rank. Mukata is shocked to hear this, and Willem says it would be a problem if Fel's master was too low ranked. In exchange for ranking him up, Willem has some requests for him, but Mukata isn't too keen on doing regular work, so he tries to decline, but Willem mentions that he actually wants Fel's help to take on some A and S ranked missions for him. Fel is confident he can handle any mission, and Willem is happy to hear this, because there are no adventurers that can normally take on those jobs. Willem says that he will tell the other adventurers not to mess with them, and Mukata thinks he can trust him, so he makes a special request. He reveals a bunch of high-ranked monsters that he's been keeping. Willem and the butcher are shocked to see the monsters, and the butcher has never even seen a chimera before. Mukata explains he kept them hidden because he didn't want to cause a scene. He wants to sell them to the guild, but Willem says that they don't have the money to even buy the chimera from him. The butcher gets excited to work with a blue ogre, and Mukata wonders what's special about it, but the butcher says it's a unique S-ranked monster. He points out the Orc King, which is also an S-ranked monster, with its ability to control all other orcs. Mukata can't believe all the S-ranked monsters that Fel has hunted, and Sui pops out, saying that he wants to be strong just like Fel, and Mukata starts to get nervous. Willem tells him to come back the next day, when his new card will be ready. Later that night, Mukata wonders what they should have for dinner, and Fel wants meat as usual. Mukata thinks they have been eating too much fried food lately, so he decides to cook something more refreshing. He boils up some rockbird meat, prepares his vegetables, and then starts shredding the meat. Sui joins in to help him out, and he tops it off with a sesame dressing. Fel is not sure about the vegetables, but they end up devouring the meal, and Sui finds the sesame sauce to be especially delicious. Mukata realizes he didn't cook any rice, so he makes himself a sandwich instead. Sui asks to try some, and Fel also asks for seconds. After the meal, Fel rests, but Mukata thinks it is pretty cramped for him, since they are used to sleeping out in the wild. Mukata takes out his futon to make it more comfortable for him, and he instantly falls asleep. The next day, Mukata goes back to the guild, and is surprised to see his new card is silver. He now has a 6-month time limit to complete his missions, so it shouldn't be getting deactivated. Willem goes on to pay Mukata. Calculating the value of all the monsters he sold, the red serpent was worth 200 gold, and the blue ogre was 432 gold. Mukata is shocked at the value of everything. Factoring in the goblin subjugation as well, it comes to a total of over 1900 gold. Mukata is left speechless and starts to worry about people coming after him. Willem reveals the 2 missions that he wants help with. The first is subjugating a group of metal lizards. With their metallic skin, they are practically immune to physical attacks. The second mission is to hunt a herd of bloody horned bulls, which have been causing trouble in a beginner hunting ground. But Fel says they are delicious, thinking of it as beef, and getting excited to eat steak again. As they leave the guild, Mukata thinks they should head off in the morning. Fel wants to go right away, but Mukata says if they did, they would end up arriving at night. But Fel just wants to have steak as soon as possible. Mukata stops by Lambert's store, and he is interested in buying a new bag. Lambert shows him a number of different bags, each made with different materials, but it's going to be for carrying Sui, so he lets Sui pick for himself. Sui picks the one made out of red boar leather, and Mukata goes on to pick out a belt, as well as some new shoes. He considers buying shoes from his shop, but decides it's better not to stand out too much. It comes to a total of 11 gold, but Lambert insists on giving it all to him for free, since Mukata saved his life and served him such a high-quality meal, so Mukata thanks him. Lambert asks about the black serpent that they ate and wonders if Mukata still has the skin, but Mukata says he already sold it to the guild. Lambert gets disappointed and mentions there is shortage of serpent skin. He dreams about getting his hands on some red serpent skin, and Mukata feels bad about selling it all to the guild. Lambert tells him if he gets any more serpent skin, to sell it directly to him, and Mukata agrees. After they leave, Fel feels like eating serpent, since they were talking about it so much. Mukata thinks about how good it tasted, so he decides to cook it again. He starts marinating the meat, and is ready to give Fel all he can eat. He starts frying it up, and when he tastes it, Sui and Fel complain he is eating without them. Fel wants to start eating, but Mukata fries the meat for a second time. As the two start eating, they find it even better than last time, since it's twice as crispy from being fried twice. After their meal, they are completely stuffed. Mukata keeps cooking, and Fel says he can't eat anymore. Mukata says it's for himself, and he plans to put some in storage so he can have some whenever he wants. Mukata enjoys a beer as Fel and Sui head to bed. He reflects on his adventure and feels lucky to have found such companions. Mukata and Fel head to the mountains where the lizards were reported to be. Mukata wonders where they could be, but Fel can detect their presence, finding a cave in the mountain. Mukata wants to wait outside, but Fel charges in. When they get inside, they only find one lizard, and Mukata thinks it's strange because it's glowing. He sees that it's a mithril lizard, and Fel says that it must have evolved after eating a bunch of mithril. He says that magic won't be effective, because mithril has the property to diffuse magic. Mukata thinks they might have trouble, but Fel uses his lightning to instantly defeat the lizard, saying he can use magic that can't be diffused. Mukata pays his respects and starts storing it away. He finds a piece of mithril ore and starts to imagine if he had a mithril weapon. He starts collecting some mithril, and Sui helps him out. He thinks about how it would be good for making armor, since it can diffuse magic, or even using the mithril lizard's skin. Fel suddenly crushes the mithril, saying he doesn't need any armor because his barrier is far superior. He wants some more action, so he suggests they should carry on with the guild master's second request. Mukata isn't ready, but Fel is eager to eat some steaks, so he drags Mukata off. They arrive at the field where the bloody horned bulls are located. Mukata is worried because they are as big as rhinos and have a bad temper. He decides to wait on the side, and Fel approaches the bulls. Sui gets jealous that Fel is fighting the bulls, so he quickly follows after him. Mukata sneaks up closer to watch, and in an instant, there is a blast of wind, and all the bulls are defeated. Sui excitedly tells Mukata about the fight, and Fel compliments him on how he did. Mukata is surprised at the number of bulls, and starts stuffing them into his storage. Sui decides to help out, splitting up into multiple slimes, and helping him move the bulls. Mukata starts thinking about all the beef dishes he will be making. Back in town, Willem and the butcher are shocked to see a mithril lizard. Mukata gets nervous and wonders if there is a problem. The butcher explains that an intact mithril lizard is so rare that the last record of a sighting was 400 years ago. Willem explains that the lizard is a sign that there is a new mithril mine, saying that mithril is so rare that there are only 3 mithril mines in the whole world. Mukata is shocked to hear it's such a big deal. Willem says that they will have to keep the lizard as an offering to the king, but mentions that he will be compensated for hunting the lizard and discovering the mine, suggesting it would be worth around 5,000 gold. The butcher is jealous, but Mukata seems to be terrified to hear this. Willem moves on to ask about the bulls, but Mukata shows that he has already completed that request as well, shocking them once again. As Mukata leaves, he worries about his peaceful life being disrupted. Fel says there is no point in worrying, and he is more interested in getting to eat steaks. Mukata starts preparing their dinner, cutting up some steaks, and frying them up until they are medium rare. He sets them aside to rest in some foil, while Fel waits patiently with Sui. The steak is perfectly cooked, and when they taste it, they find it to be outstanding, with juice overflowing with every bite. Fel compares it to the wagyu that he had, and immediately asks for more. Mukata gives him another batch, and adds his favorite steak sauce, making it even more delicious. After their meal, they are completely stuffed, and Fel thinks it would be hard for him to go back to eating raw meat. Fel reminds him about his offerings to Ninri, and it seems he has forgotten once again. He quickly goes to prepare her offering, and hears her voice, listing out all the things that she wants him to send. As he sends his offering, he suddenly hears the voices of the other goddesses. They think it's not fair that Ninri is getting all the sweets to herself, but Ninri says it's because she gave him her blessing. The other goddesses offer to bless him as well, so he will send offerings to them, but Ninri tries to object. Mukata says that he already has Ninri's blessing, but they point out that she only gave him a minor blessing, and that he doesn't have any affinity with wind magic. They suggest that with a more compatible blessing, he will get far more benefits. Since he has an affinity for fire and earth, a blessing from the earth goddess Kisha or the fire goddess Agni would be much more suitable. Ninri interrupts, saying that the god of creation is mad at them for giving too many blessings, but the two think it will be fine if they only give him minor blessings as well. Mukata wonders if there has ever been anyone with multiple blessings, but it seems that has never happened before. Mukata tries to use this as a reason to decline, but the two goddesses bless him anyway. The water goddess Ruka feels left out, because Mukata doesn't have any affinity with water, so her blessing would be useless for him, and she cries because she will be the only one who doesn't get an offering from him. The other goddesses start to panic, telling Mukata to do something. Mukata doesn't know what to do, and Sui tries to comfort him. Seeing Sui, Mukata asks Ruka to give her blessing to Sui instead. The goddesses all agree, and Ruka gives her blessing to Sui. Kisha points out that Ruka gave Sui a full blessing, but Ruka says it's okay, since she only gives her blessing out every 100 years, unlike the rest of them, who constantly give their blessing out, making the god of creation mad at them. Now that he is blessed, they demand his offerings, so Mukata sends them an extra large box of desserts, and they are overjoyed. Mukata checks his status, and sees his new blessings. Sui wonders what a blessing does, and Mukata explains it protects him and boosts his power, but Sui doesn't really understand, so Mukata decides to test it out the next day. When Mukata tries out his magic, he finds his power has dramatically increased. Even after using his magic, he doesn't get exhausted like he used to, so he is pleased with the blessings. He tells Sui to try out some water magic to test his blessing, so Sui starts using some water magic, creating a spinning orb of water. Mukata is amazed and wonders how far he can shoot it, so Sui fires it at a tree, which completely knocks it down. Sui also uses water as a blade, easily cutting through the trees. Mukata thinks he is amazing, but warns him not to attack anyone in town. Fel suddenly wants to fight Sui, but Mukata says it's too early, and Fel gets disappointed, thinking he had finally found a worthy opponent. Mukata keeps practicing his magic, trying out his new stone wall spell. Fel leaves to go hunting, and at the end of the day, Mukata is excited to show them how he created a house using his earth magic. They are not particularly impressed, and Fel has returned with a black serpent, since he knows Mukata has a deal with Lambert. Mukata is suspicious of his intentions, but Fel just wants to be rewarded with a special dinner. When they wake up, Fel agrees his hut was pretty comfortable, and he wonders what they will be doing that day, suggesting they could go hunting, but Mukata isn't too keen. He says they should go back to town and deliver the black serpent that Fel caught for Lambert. They head back to the guild, and Mukata visits the butcher. All the bull meat is prepared, and the butcher gives him his payment for the portion he sold. Mukata pulls out the black serpent, and the butcher is surprised he found another one so easily. Mukata asks him to prepare it for him, and Sui appears, asking if it's time for lunch. Mukata gets ready to cook, and Fel asks why he is so enthusiastic. Mukata reveals his new item he bought, a grinder that will let him make minced meat. He starts grinding up the bull meat, and Sui finds it amazing, wanting to try it himself, and he helps grind up the meat. They end up grinding orc meat as well, and they mix the meats together, adding eggs, onions, and forming them into patties. They are also perfect for storing away in his storage. He fries up the patties, adding his special sauce, and Fel can't wait to eat it. After they enjoy their meal, Mukata washes his shirt, but the soap isn't very good. He gets an idea, and thinks he could sell the soap from his shop. He buys a bunch of shampoo and conditioner, transferring it into some bottles, so it's not as suspicious. Sui plays in a tub of water, and Mukata thinks about how he hasn't taken a bath in a long time. He goes to visit Lambert, who is surprised to see the black serpent's skin. Mukata goes on to reveal he is also a merchant, so he wants Lambert to check if his products would be valuable. Lambert checks out the soap, and finds it to be quite fragrant. Mukata explains how it's more effective, and also talks about the shampoo for washing hair, and the conditioner to make hair silky smooth. Mukata gets worried at Lambert's reaction, but Lambert suddenly is in tears thanking him. Since his anniversary is coming up, and his wife is bored of his bags and accessories, he didn't know what to get her, but he thinks that these products would be perfect for her since she loves bathing. Hearing this, Mukata asks if he has a bathtub, and Lambert says he had one custom built for his wife. Mukata is amazed, and imagines finally having a bath. He asks to see the bathtub, and Lambert agrees to show him. Mukata is amazed to see it, and Lambert explains how expensive it was, requiring a magic device to purify the water, and hiring an earth magician to create it. He says it costs over a few hundred gold, so having one as a merchant is proof they are doing well. Mukata is keen on getting one, and Lambert offers to introduce him to the seller, which Mukata is happy to hear. Mukata ends up giving Lambert the products to try, and suggests he should test them out himself before giving anything to his wife, and Lambert agrees, not wanting to test things on his wife. The next day, Mukata visits again, and Lambert is excited to see him. His wife suddenly rushes to meet him, introducing herself as Marie, and wants to know more about the products. After Lambert had a bath, he smelled so good, and his hair became so soft that she instantly noticed. Lambert is disappointed he ruined the anniversary present, but Marie says she also tried the products, with the shampoo cleaning her hair better than anything else, and the conditioner making her hair beautiful and smooth. Mukata thinks they want to buy more, but Lambert asks if he wants to sell them at his store. Mukata is surprised to hear this, since he has a leather shop, but Marie is sure the products will sell, saying it would be a shame for another merchant to sell it, because every woman in the city will want to buy some. She insists that Mukata sell it to them wholesale, and he agrees, since he doesn't have his own shop. Marie is excited to hear this, especially since she can have a personal supply. When Mokata returns, he is exhausted after delivering a bunch of product to the shop. Fel wants to look for a dungeon, but Mokata rejects the idea, saying he is being called by the guild master. As Fel waits outside, Mokata hears some adventurers talking about a stray wyvern and gets worried about how dangerous they are. He goes to see the guild master and is shocked to see a gigantic stack of gold. Willem tells him he is getting 5,800 gold for discovering the mithril mine, and Mokata can only think about buying a bathtub for himself. There is suddenly an emergency as a herd of wyverns is approaching. They are surprised there is a whole herd of them, but it seems because Mokata took out the pack of bulls, which the wyverns would normally hunt, they have now all grouped up. There are a number of injured adventurers, with some suffering from the wyvern's deadly poison. The guild is running out of potions and antidotes, but Mokata takes out his high-grade potions. As Willem uses the potion, the man's wounds are instantly healed, and they are shocked at how it completely healed everything, including the poison. After healing the wounded, Willem orders all the adventurers C-ranked and above to help fight the wyverns. Mokata realizes that includes him, and Willem rallies up everyone and they prepare to fight, but Fel stops them, saying they will deal with the wyverns themselves. Mokata doesn't want to go, but Fel has been bored and says that wyvern meat is delicious, declaring that all the wyvern they defeat will belong to them. Willem wants to help, but Fel says he would only get in the way. They head out into the field and see the wyverns in the distance. Mokata can see they are dangerous, but Fel isn't worried and decides it's the perfect time to teach Sui how to fight flying opponents. Fel and Sui approach, dodging the wyvern's attacks. He tells Sui that headshots are the most effective, but their wings are easier to hit. Sui tries aiming for the head. It misses the head, but it's enough to bring it to the ground, and Fel finishes it off. They start fighting against the wyverns, and Mokata hides away. As he watches them fight, he thinks Sui is becoming more and more like Fel, who always wants to fight. Suddenly, a wyvern approaches him, but he is protected by Fel's barrier. As the wyvern tries to attack again, it is stopped by Sui, who bounces him away, and Fel finishes it off. After defeating all the wyverns, Fel gets a bit hungry, so Mokata prepares to cook. He takes out the patties he prepared, and Fel thinks they are eating the same thing again, but Mokata coats them with egg and bread crumbs. He fries them all up, and with this small change, their meal is completely different. Fel can't believe how different it tastes, finding the added crunch to be delightful. Meanwhile at the guild, Willem and the adventurers start to get worried, wondering if Mokata could handle the wyverns. But Mokata finally returns, and he reports that they wiped them all out successfully. The adventurers are amazed and celebrate, which Mokata finds strange, but Willem mentions that if the adventurers had fought against the wyverns, at least half of them would have died. Willem says he was worried they had failed because it took them so long to return, and Mokata feels bad because it was an easy battle, but they just stopped to have lunch. He decides not to mention it, but Fel points out the reason they were late, and Mokata gets embarrassed. Mokata reports that there were 13 wyverns, and Willem is interested in buying their parts. Mokata is happy to sell everything except the meat, but the guild only has enough money to buy half the wyverns. Back at the inn, Mokata suddenly remembers he needs to send his offerings to the goddesses, and he suddenly gets a divine message from Agni, telling him to hurry up. Mokata explains he is about to send his offering, and he suddenly gets a secret message from Nenri, reminding him that she was the first one to give him a blessing, so she wants to get more sweets than the others. Kisha secretly tells him that she wants him to send her the shampoo and hair products that he has been selling, and Ruka wants to try out his other food. Mokata tells them he can't keep their offerings a secret, since he will be sending it all at once, and Agni gets angry that the other goddesses were making secret requests, so she joins in and tells Mokata to send her alcohol, and Mokata can only agree. The next day, Mokata and Fel are attracting more attention after defeating the wyverns, and Mokata makes his way to a certain shop. He is amazed as he looks around, checking out the different bathtubs, and the clerk explains that they start from 300 gold, with some that are made with different materials that provide different effects. As Mokata considers the options, the clerk reveals their newest product, but when Mokata sees it, it actually just looks like a normal bathtub. He ends up picking the green bathtub, and the clerk is shocked he decided so easily, since it would be very expensive for a normal person. The clerk wonders how he will pay, suggesting their payment plan, but Mokata shows he has the money. The clerk wonders where to deliver it to, but Mokata tells him not to worry, since he can just put it into his storage. Mokata leaves overjoyed, and tells Fel they should get out of the city, because everyone has been looking at them since they dealt with the wyverns. They find a nice place, and Fel decides to go off and do some hunting. Mokata marks out an area on the ground, and using his stone wall skill, he creates a private area. He takes out the tub, and asks Sui to fill it with water, and when it's full, Mokata uses his fireball to heat up the water. Before taking his bath, Mokata furiously scrubs himself down, and finally gets to relax with Sui. After their bath, Mokata decides to cook some of the wyvern meat, and he is excited since Fel mentioned how good it tastes. He thinly slices the meat, creating a rich sauce, and makes a special wyvern beef bowl. However, he notices that Fel still hasn't returned, so he decides to make some stew since he has extra time. He buys the ingredients, and cuts everything up. He sears the meat until it's brown, adding the vegetables next, and then adding water and some red wine. He adds some sauce for extra flavor, and then leaves it to simmer. Sui mentions that Fel is back, and as Mokata waits for him to appear, a dinosaur emerges, which is a shock to Mokata. Mokata asks him about the giant lizard, and Fel mentions that his fight with the wyverns was a letdown, so he went hunting and ended up fighting an earth dragon. Mokata can't believe what he is hearing, and can't believe there is a dragon in front of him. He doesn't know what to do with it, but Fel says it will be delicious. But Mokata reminds him of the exceptional rare monsters he has hunted, but are impossible to sell. He thinks that a dragon will definitely fall into this category, but Fel insists it will be delicious. Mokata says it's going to be a problem, but Fel suggests he ask the guild to help him resell it, and Mokata thinks it might be possible. Fel notices the stew that Mokata made, and immediately gets excited, but Mokata stops him, telling him he is dirty after his fight, and Fel is a bit offended. He tells Fel he needs to take a bath before dinner, and Fel is shocked. Mokata finds some dog grooming tools in his shop, but Fel reminds him he isn't a dog. Mokata helps untangle his fur with a brush, and then proceeds to splash him with water. Mokata wonders why he flinched, but Fel immediately denies it. Mokata keeps splashing him to get him wet, but Fel finds it ticklish and wonders if Sui could just use his water magic, but Mokata mentions that Sui's water wouldn't be hot. However, Mokata gets an idea and turns Sui into a shower connected to the hot water. Fel gets completely drenched, and Mokata starts to shampoo him. Fel starts to enjoy it, but Mokata mentions washing his face. Although it scares him, Fel agrees, not wanting to look weak as a legendary Fenrir. After it's all over, Mokata prepares to dry him off, but Fel shakes off all the water instead. Using his fire magic and Fel's wind, they create a warm breeze to help him dry off. Mokata comments on how good he looks, and Fel demands that it's time for dinner. They start with the special beef bowls, which Fel finds amazing, and Mokata is surprised that wyvern tastes similar to wagyu. As they eat, Mokata tells Fel he needs to start taking regular baths, and Fel is not happy about this. But Mokata uses Sui to tell him he looks better now, so Fel agrees to the arrangement. When they try the wyvern stew, Fel can't believe how good it tastes, and looks forward to what Mokata will make in the future. Back at the guild, Willem says it's impossible to resell the dragon, and the butcher mentions that every part of the dragon's body is too valuable, and refuses to work on it. Fel mentions that he just wants the meat, but Mokata says it's not that simple. However, Willem thinks it could be possible for a certain dragon expert, and Mokata and Fel are excited. Willem points to another city, and Fel is excited to see it's near the sea, remembering his goal to eat krakens and other sea monsters. But Willem and the butcher just laugh, hearing such an absurd statement, but they know that's exactly what they will do. Mokata says farewell to the people he met along the way, and they set off for their next adventure. But that's where this video ends. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.